After 5 years, it's finally time to install this turbocharger on our MK4 R32. In addition to that, we have some prep like the exhaust manifold that has to go on. We're also going to install the prop shaft, the valve cover, the power steering rack, and something I've been dreading. 6 years ago, I broke something, and now we got to figure out how to fix it, which could easily take this project completely sideways. Before we get to the cool stuff, like the turbocharger, I'm going to install this knock sensor. And if you're like, that's lame and boring, I agree with you, but you all wanted to see everything, so here you go, watch this. The old knock sensor reach around. Let me see if I can, it didn't work. Now, the thing about knock sensors, you have to make sure you torque them properly. If you don't, they don't knock properly. They don't knock right. Knock right? Whatever. This one's 20 neutrons. Okay, and continuing on our journey, there we go. Go ahead and mark this. Okay, next up, exhaust gaskets. You'll notice this has this little hang down. That covers the knock sensor that we just installed. That's why we had to put the knock sensor on first. I don't make the rules here, friends. Just how it goes. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. All that stock so far. Next up, we have our manifold. This one's from HPA, and something that I didn't notice until just a few minutes ago, they got a little maple leaf on it because they're from the Canadias. Now I will tell you, sometimes putting your nuts on the manifold is a little challenging to get to all of them. What's interesting about these nuts is that they are not circular. They're actually a tiny bit oval, and so that helps it function like a lock nut so it doesn't vibrate off. These are the original studs from this engine, I believe. I think I just cleaned them up. They were pretty nasty. Now it's jammed. Damn it. We'll come back to that one. And then when I'm like, where's that other nut? Well, no, I'm just irresponsible. That fitment. So this turbo setup is meant for this car, right? Like HPA designed it for this car. So we should not have any fitment type issues, but I'm looking at this distance between the manifold and the firewall and this little shelf right here. It's gonna be tight. I installed the studs on this manifold. I think it came with bolts, but I was like, you know what? I would prefer studs a little bit more to hold our turbo on than bolts. We'll see how that goes for us. Also, there's no gasket for this, which makes me a little uneasy. So we may, depending on how my brain is, right after we get this turbo on, we may order a gasket anyway. Now both of the surfaces, manifold and turbo, I think were machined, so they should sit flush together. A lot of aftermarket turbos don't use gaskets, but it's just not my vibe. It's not the vibe, it's not the aesthetic. I gotta get a pick to get this stupid nut that I dropped because I'm a dum-dum. Oh, look I hooked it the first try, blind. It's not really that much of an accomplishment, but I probably couldn't do it again. Let's run these bad babies on. What's that? What's that Cash Me Outside girl? Is it Bad Barbie? Wow. As I'm running all these nuts on here, I'm thinking, you know, Charles, you ding dong, you probably should have just put this manifold on while the engine was on the stand. But I didn't. So here we are. I got my dad's shoes on. I'm riding, dog. Nothing but the finest for this dude. Someone's like, Charles, why didn't you cut the bolt down instead of using all those washers? And I was like, that's a valid question. Mostly because I didn't want to. It's hilarious. I did it for the meme, really. I'm just trolling everybody because that's what I'm known for, is just troll. Straight up troll. Troll nation. Like that episode of King of the Hill where I think it's the one where their house gets mold and Bobby has his troll dolls and he's worried about them and he goes, my treasures. Didn't sound like that, but you guys know how Bobby sounds. Click. Okay. One manifold successfully installed. Let's get our turbo prepped. Before we install it, I want to install the return line fitting. So if you're not sure which is the feed, which is the return is gonna be on the bottom side of the turbo. We're gonna let gravity pull the oil down through. Gasket, also there was this little warning card inside the turb ski that says, put oil in it before you just rely on cranking of said engine to lube it up. So we're gonna stack this up. This is really basic. Gasket goes on. Then we have our fitting for our return line. And then if you watched the video that I did on tools that everybody should have in their toolbox, the last thing I mentioned was kind of an out there thing, but I'm gonna show you in practice how this can be an amazing addition to your toolbox. I feel like I'm doing overkill with all these markings, but it's gonna be worth it later when I'm like, did I tighten that? Oh, I can't get to it. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Now, the thing I was talking about with the tools was a 3D printer, right? And it feels out there to be a professional automotive technician or even a DIYer and have a 3D printer on your toolbox. But look at what kind of cool stuff you can do. And this is just scratching the surface. This is a block off for a dash 10 fitting. So we're gonna prime the turbocharger with our liquid moly turbocharger additive. But if we put it in there, it's just gonna leak right out. So I printed this cap. Check this out. This is so cool. Oh, watch it not fit. Oh no, it doesn't fit. Oh no! But this is why this is awesome. Now, if this were a very expensive cap that you purchased, you probably wouldn't want to do what I'm doing right now. But the beauty for us is we can just take this, cut it, twist it on, and then print another one. So now we have this cap. That'll keep all that turbo additive from leaking out and all over the place. We'll flip our Turbski over, pull the cap off for the feed line. Also, I just got a text from the powder coat guy. Let's see if at me. So I just got a text from Jeff, who does all our powder coating. Our brakes are at powder coat, and he always gives me a hard time because I seem to send him the absolute worst quality stuff. There's our brake stuff cleaned up, probably getting ready to go in the tank one more time. Then we'll get them powder coated. So we should have this stuff back for next video, and we can actually install them. He just said these things are gonna require a lot of love, which what that says to me is cha-ching, cha-ching. Where's the money gun? Just, we might have to pull the money gun out for that. Okay, so I'm just going to put some of this turbo treatment in. Am I actually doing it? Oh, tech tip of the day, there's a second piece that you gotta cut. So this is what I generally put on as kind of a pre-treatment every time I do a turbocharger. Factory turbo, upgraded, doesn't really matter. Oh God. You know what I should have done? We're gonna do a 200 IQ move here that would be a 300 IQ move if I would have done it first. Now we can screw our cap on. I'm gonna just leave both caps on there. So we got our dash 10 that I printed, and then I think this is like a dash 4 here. So we're all treated and lubed, and we're ready to go. We're ready to install this thing. I'm not going to install this now, but this is our wastegate actuator. I may have called it a controller previously, but it's actually an actuator. So this arm will adjust this arm here, which is this flap. It's not exactly how it goes, but you get the idea. And so we'll have to adjust it once we get it on. I am noticing that we won't be able to turn this nut once it's on. But this basically decides whether you have boosts or no boosts. No boost. Now on modern turbos, these are electric and they're infinitely controlled, which is why you have almost no boost lag. I gotta tell you, boost lag is something I'm a bit worried about. This is a rather large Turbski. If you're not familiar with the term boost lag, it basically is the delay from when you push your foot on the gas and say, I wanna go faster, until the car actually makes boost. Have you ever driven a 1.8 turbo, an old one, where you hit the gas and you're like, okay, I hit the gas, I hear the RPM going up, then all of a sudden you kind of feel the car accelerate? The time distance between when you put your foot on the gas and the car actually starts to accelerate with any sort of enthusiasm, that's the lag. One of the cool things about a project like this, I guess anyway, is that there's never a shortage of things to do. So right now, I am going to prep our power steering rack with the goal of having it mounted up to our subframe, right? It's gotta get mounted to the subframe at some point. Might as well start getting it cleaned up. So this is a little rubber piece that actually lives up here in the car. The lines that I have still attached, I'm gonna leave attached because I have new lines, but we're gonna clean this and I don't wanna pump the power steering rack full of like degreaser or anything. So we're just gonna leave it on there for now. First up though is I'm gonna remove this heat shield. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time cleaning it. What I am gonna spend some time doing though, as you can see, it's all boogered up like right here. I am going to just kind of bend it, try and massage it back. This doesn't have to be perfect, which is great because it's not going to be. I just want it to look a little bit nicer. Drop it in the sonic cleaner. I'm pretty sure it'll fit. See, there's a little bit of yuck where the shields kind of come apart right there. Not a big deal. We'll just put a washer on it or something like that. But look at how nasty this power steering rack is. Yuck. We're gonna try and run it. If we end up with a failure, obviously that'll be on me and we'll adjust down the road. But look, cleaning this up, I hope will be good enough. You can see how yuck this bushing is. Now, before we soak this whole thing down with degreaser, I'm gonna just try and wire brush some of the yuck off of this, just see how it cleans up. At this exact moment, I'm a little worried that we might end up having to redo more of this rack than I had anticipated. And I don't wanna do it, but I may have to. Now, I do have new tie rods, tie rod ends, boots, and all that. I think based on the way the car looks right now, it's easy to forget that this thing was pretty damn rusted. busted. In fact, when we were taking the rack out, I had a bolt break in one of the mounting hole pieces, and then I went to the junkyard and just snatched one. You know what they say about things at the junkyard, if it fits in your pocket, it's free. And like I say quite often, we're not making microchips here, right? So like, this doesn't need to be perfect. If this were your project, what would you do? Would you strip it all the way down, powder coat it, zinc coat the bolts like my man Jason would? Would you do nothing? Which, I gotta tell you, I don't think I'd be real mad at anybody if they're like, yo bro, I ain't doing nothing. Or would you kind of meet it in the middle, which is sort of what we're doing here. Really, these lines right here are kind of the only thing I'm worried about. They're pretty crusty. This would probably be a good candidate for not dry ice blasting, but like a laser cleaning, I bet. Although, if you remember the transmission on the Lupo, that thing came out insanely good. So I got this pretty well clean. Is it spotless? No. Are we gonna eat off of it? No. Is it gonna be okay? Well, I hope so. Just gonna hit it with some brake cleaner. That's the second video in a row that I said that, and I don't want to. This is how, while you're in there, actually happens. You're doing something and you go into it like, okay, I'll just get it to a place, right? I'll get it to C. And then you're cleaning it, you're like, you know what would be cool is if we completely tore it down, replaced these lines, bent new ones, whatever. And then while we're there, why don't we powder coat it? Why don't we, repaint this gold so that we could know where the gold's at? And pretty soon you're like, ah, cool. We'll just completely disassemble it, find new hardware, put beauty washers on everybody, and you've spent $2,000 doing something that, you really boil down, completely unnecessary. And we'll get these dang tie rod ends off, test fit our solid bushing, and we can put this thing on the subframe. Let's get the power steering lines off, but these are just standard banjo bolts, so I think we'll take this. I'm just gonna put it right back in, and we're not gonna reuse it. I got new O-rings. The line is actually okay, it's just the fitting's a little crusty, so I'll probably hold on to these. I'm not gonna put the new lines on probably until this is all up in the car. We can get this whole mess out of here. Another reason why I got those lines is look at how crusty all this stuff is, but I mean, technically they're still good. I have boots that I'm not sure are the right ones. So we're gonna take these tie rods off, which means I gotta take the tie rod end off, which means we need fire. Now, what we've learned is after spraying a bunch of brake cleaner, don't use fire because it will start a fire. And then I'll have to roll this thing right on outside. Now we're gonna use a tool I don't have to use very often, and that is our mini ductor. I know a lot of you like Rust Belt techs, this is a go-to tool for you. You use it all the time. I don't, and I'm thankful that I don't have to. We'll just heat this bad boy up right quick. I smell it, let me inhale it. Oh, that came loose real nice. Should be able to spin this off by hand. Let's toss a small mark though. Even though, yeah, we're gonna need an alignment, I wanna try and get it close. Yeah, there we go. That's how to do it. And you might be wondering why I'm even bothering to replace these parts. The tie rod boots, none of it's broken. In fact, the left side had a brand new nut on it, so it's probably newer. The tie rod, the piece that actually attaches to the rack right about here, is super floppy. So when you have a tie rod sticking out, a new one might sag a little bit, but it'll mostly hold up without just flopping down. These, the second you let it go, it just flops down, so. Oh yeah, oh, did you see all that smoke come up when I cracked that bad boy loose? There's a bunch of anti-seize in here, so no surprise that it came loose pretty easily. Easy. Oh yeah, still smoking. Oh, that actually looks super cool. And with any luck, I have new ones of those somewhere that we can utilize. Did it burn my table? A little bit. There we go, that was a good example, so watch. The joints, again, not failed, but definitely worn out. Yeah, come off, get off me. Normally I'd worry about centering it, but I'm not that worried about it on this one because we'll have to center the rack, we'll have to center the column, so not a big deal. There we go. Jeez Louise. I think because the rack's just kind of chilling on the table, I'm a little worried I won't be able to get it loose. So we'll just mount it to the subframe and then I should be able to swap these out. Here's our subframe. You may remember we bolted our H&R sway bar on last time. So this is a solid mount to replace that rubber bushing that we had initially. Let's turn it the other way so I don't put the power steering rack on backwards. It seems ridiculous that that could be a thing, but it might be able to be a thing, I don't know. There we go. So that goes like that. Get our little unit apart. It's kind of offset. You got one bolt here far, one bolt here close. So it should only be able to go on one way correctly anyway. I just put a little blue mark on it right there so that we get it all back the way it's supposed to go. That is metal on metal, my friends. Metal on metal. We got our nuts up here. I'm gonna just drop these in. That can lay. I did get all new hardware for the power steering rack. In fact, let's put some anti-seize on this. I actually like the copper anti-seize because it doesn't seem to be, well, like our friend Tin Man Pauly D. It's gonna hold that rack real nice. And I think, in theory anyway, our shield should still bolt up. Maybe it doesn't. We might have to massage that. Now that this is mounted up to here, I'm gonna tighten it down and we can do our tie rods and tie rod ends. But I wanna show you something I was talking about earlier with the floppiness of our tie rod ends. Watch what happens when I let go of these. There's no tension. Now there's no play in it, but there's no tension. And as soon as we get the new ones on, you'll see that they may not stand firmly tall, but they definitely don't go limp like this one does. This grommet holder is for a power steering line, which is probably pretty obvious. So because I don't have the power steering line there and connected, I'm not gonna torque this down. I probably am not even gonna torque down the 13s that hold the rack to the subframe, but what I am gonna do is I'm gonna tighten them so that we have something holding the power steering rack in place so we can do the tie rod ends. This is dope. Let's get our subframe bushings in. These are solid bushings that I got from T-Roll Sport whenever I did this. They tell you to use they probably don't tell you to use excessive grease, but they tell you to grease the thing. They tell you to do the top bushing first and then do the bottom side. So I am using our wheel bearing tool to do this. My hope was that because they've been in the fridge for like 5 years, that they would just drop right in, but no. They aren't gonna drop right in. You gotta do a little bit of work. You'll notice this side is already on. I wanted to kind of get a rhythm of how it went, and I struggled. And I think the reason that I struggled more is because my subframe is powder coated, and it's powder coated in the hole. So it's not a lot of space that takes up, but it's some. You do wanna try your best to make sure you get these in even. By the way, I don't recommend you do what I'm about to do, which is impact the bolt with a ratcheting wrench. Probably not best practice. That one went in easier than the other side did. The bottom side is the same thing, except you do need to use a smaller one of the adapters because it has to go up into the recess of the subframe. I will tell you, these took more force to get in than I had anticipated. We got our smaller fitting. I really do think if you don't have a powder coated subframe and you just have a normal situation, these should go in much easier. Powder coat is not super thick, but it might and very likely is thick enough to just get this a little tiny bit wonky. But either way, we got them in. So that's exciting. I spent a handful of minutes trying to get this inner tie rod off. And despite my fighting efforts, it was a no-go. I do have a tie rod tool. It's like a long tube with kind of a socket bit on the end that'll slide over this whole thing, then you can get a wrench on it and crack it loose. The cool thing is I have no idea where the heck that is, so I need to dig that up and find it. What that means though, is there's a good chance I might just wait until the rack is in the car, and then we'll do the tie rod ends, boots. Not terribly challenging to do it while it's up there, but either way, whatever, it's not that big a deal. The subframe's not going in right now anyway, so it's not urgent or dire, but here's the cool thing. The rack is now mounted. The clean, fresh heat shield will be going on. Our metal bracket is on. Our bushings are on. These were in my freezer for years, so just more things starting to come together, and I gotta tell you, I'm pretty excited about that. So, on to the next thing. Okay, here's where we're at. This is a brand new prop shaft that I think is no longer available. And the main reason that I got it was the prop shaft that I took out of this car, the bushings were cooked. In addition to that, the rubber isolators and the same thing in the back, all worn out. And on top of that, you then have to question what does your carrier bearing look like in the middle of the prop shaft, right? And this is actually the place where on the car we had some damage that I'm a little, I don't know what the right word is, not uneasy, but not really uncertain. I'm some unword that we're gonna have to fix, but you'll see that in a minute. So the reason that I decided to just go ahead and do it is we're trying to balance having a firm chassis, but but not have the type of vibration that's gonna rattle your teeth out. I actually went back and forth on this next thing we're gonna do a ton. Because it's a brand new prop shaft, I was like, do I really need to install this carrier bearing upgrade? But then I thought, hey, this is gonna be over 500 horsepower to the shoes. So I think it's a worthwhile mod. If this were an older prop shaft, it would be a no-brainer. But the reason I got this was by the time I replaced the bushing and the damper in the back, bushing and damper in the front, and redid the carrier bearing, we're at about the same price we are at with a new prop shaft. So our man Jay from JXB gave me this several years ago, and now it's time to finally install it. For this, right, so here's our carrier bearing. This is where we're gonna be working, but what also happens is this. Look at how much flex this really has. So this should allow us to have less power loss through our prop shaft. At least that's kind of what I'm hoping for. We're also using the track version. There's soft, or street probably, and track, and we got us a race car, so we gotta go to the track with a race car. I also just ripped my glove, cool. That's really delightful. Now you can do this in the car, but since we're on the bench already, there's no reason to wait. Oh yeah, so easy, so easy. I don't know if this is where this repair actually originated, but the first gen Torags were really bad about the bushing inside of here just coming apart. For a while, a long while, the only fix for it was to get a whole new prop shaft. Oh, good thing I'm real strong. Yeah. That's what happens when you go to the gym one time. You get strong like that. Okay. Calm down there, Chucko. Old and busted, literally busted, and new hotness. Just based on that alone, the coolness factor of this upgrade is real high. The way this goes, this is gonna go around like this, but we gotta trim down some more of this rubber. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you really want this diameter right here to kind of be the diameter through the whole width of this piece. I mentioned that there was a track version of this bushing, but there's also these dampers that kind of ride like this. There's two different versions of that as well.
And again, no doing the numbers of how much cost this project has added up, right?
No, God, no. We've already determined we are not calculating full on what this project costs. Question of the day: do you put thread locker in the hole on the bolts, or are you a bother? I'm a bolter. Some people are nutters, which, you know, if you want to make a joke about that, there's probably a joke in there somewhere to make. So the next phase of this is going to be putting these little dampers here. Take a bolt, which, by the way, how dope looking are these bolts? This is actually something that kind of motivated me to do this because I'm like, oh, these bolts are so cool. That doesn't give you the feels like it's just some mass-produced bolt. It's real life hardware. There we go, just like that. It's still got a bit of wiggle, right? But I'm not able to like... This next thing we're about to do is something I've been dreading for years. When I took this bolt out, which this is the bolt that holds the center carrier into the car, it broke. So on the car, this right here is where our prop shaft mounts. There are two bolts that hold that center carrier bearing. Then of course it attaches to the bevel box and the Haldex in the back. When I was taking the factory prop shaft out, the nut that's captive in the bracket right here is where the bolt broke, and then while I was trying to extract it, the whole thing came apart. So there's no nut up in this little hole, like nothing. The nut over here is okay. I did chase the threads to get it cleaned up a little bit. We're in good shape there. Perfect world, we would take that bracket, remove it, weld a nut, put it back on. It's spot welded and I don't have a spot welder. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this nut and I'm gonna go up into the bracket. We're gonna put that nut right up in there, and then I'm just gonna slide it. And what my hope is, in worst case scenario, I can get a pick back behind here, because there is a little bit of a gap like in the bracket, and just sort of hold the nut while I tighten the bolt. It's time. Let's prop our shaft up. So I got this sweet bungee. That's gonna hold backside. All right, we're locked in there, so that's great. I'm gonna start by installing it in the back. I got new bolts. There is some confusion in the parts catalog, by the way. The longer of the two that it calls for are for the back. The shorter of the two are for the front. But it calls for both bolts this size and probably, 2/3 of this length in both locations, and that's just not right. So for mine, it's long bolts in the back, short bolts in the front. The reason I start back here is because everywhere else we have flexibility and movement. In the middle section, we got a little bit of play. In the front, we can swing the engine to account for the room to slide the prop shaft in, because we have to go into this, right, with the bushing side. So I put a little lubricant on that, and I need to get the prop shaft to about here, and then we'll come back and torque those. All right, we're gonna use this to support this, so I'm not having to shove it up there and try and get it threaded. Oh yeah, oh yeah, hell yeah. That definitely took, yes. Okay, I still have to torque it down, 19 neutrons, but we are dialed and profiled, my friends. Now, we can put our heat shield right here, which kind of goes up into this valley. And that means we're ready for our cat back on the exhaust. Now, I actually talked with Alex from Miltech a couple of days ago. He's like, yep, we're shipping out your exhaust. So we should get it really soon. But we just had that giant snowstorm where like my area was in the cone of dryness or something. The triangle of dryness. I don't remember what they called it. So who knows when our exhaust will get here, but it should be pretty soon. In the meantime, we'll get one of these big boy zip ties. By the way, if you drive an RS3 or a TTRS with brake duct venting, and you're like, I don't want to spend $18 for one zip tie from Audi, I got a whole bag for like 18 bucks on Amazon. So that should be bevel box on, front prop shaft in, done. Always feels like such a victory when I put one of these paint marks like, this is done. I didn't torque down the rear bolts just in case we have to take some of this off. So going in the theme of all the rest of the stuff in the back, nothing is torqued, because what we're gonna do is go back. Basically, around the time we put all the fluids in, I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna torque everything. I'll print out the torque list and we'll all of it. In the last video where we installed the engine and mounted the engine and transmission together, there was a lot of comments about this right here. This giant gap that is now between the oil pan and the transmission. The factory oil pan actually will mount right here, so it closes this whole gap. There were two main comments. One, you don't have the metal shield bolted to anything, so you're gonna have a transmission that maybe isn't oriented properly. That's not the case, right? What they're saying is if you have your engine and your transmission mounted together, you now have your transmission kind of wonky. It's fine. That's not a problem. The other thing, which I 100% agree with, is now we have this giant hole and we can get dirt, debris, right now snow, up into our flywheel, up into our clutch, and we don't want that. So I'm working on, this is just kind of a rough deal. I made this little template and it's gonna kind of go just like that. It'll bolt up. We'll see how it needs to trim for the bevel box, but otherwise we'll just cut it out of metal, drill holes in it, lock it into place. Maybe we'll put a small flange on it at the top. So I love that you guys mentioned it. On the same page, 100%. That's why I made this template. It's something I'm working on, but it's a low priority right now. What is a higher priority is going to be this, our circles. And this heat shield that, listen, it would have been awesome if I could have gotten this dry ice blasted, but I ran out of bandwidth and the dry ice guy is like a 2.5 hour drive. So we're gonna fix it as best as we can, because this thing is shabby. This is one that I actually do wish was still around, because I probably would have ponied up for a new one, just because it looks like someone chewed on it, and this whole back's all wonked up. So it goes like that. You can see this big hole. Nothing's gonna hold, so we need to make a little repair there. Kind of the same thing back at the back. It's not as big of a deal back here because that bracket pushes it all up, but we definitely have a few places we need, I wanna say, make some sweet love into this thing. But that's gross. So for our heat shield, the mountings on the car are here and here, and then 4 back here. And you can see like this has nothing left, where these are actually gonna be okay. So I got these little repair tabs from Amazon. They were like $5 for 6 of them. So they're not cheap, but not horribly expensive. I drilled the holes out just a little bit so that we have some room to flex the heat shield around. And basically all we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of set that there like that, form it, a tiny bit. It doesn't need to be crazy. I have this tape that is also heat tape. So all I did was just pull a piece of tape off, then taped it on. And then I'll trim it a little bit. Probably very, very sad right now. We'll poke this hole, and then it's basically fixed. Now, is this elegant? Is it beautiful? Is it what I would prefer to do? Absolutely not. I would much rather get a new shield or, do a really nice repair. This is yet another place where Volkswagen has no support for their old cars. When we get to the bevel box, you'll get a little bit more, what's the right word, animated version of how I feel about Volkswagen's terrible parts support. She ain't winning any beauty pageants, I don't think. And look, do I love this? No. But this is going to be a function over form situation. I'm also waiting on another couple of those round circle dealies. So we'll come back and add them back here. All right. Yo, that's so cool. I love it. I mean, I wish our clips were not crusty, but not important right now. What is important is really starting to become a car again, not just a frickin' pile of parts. I'm very excited about that. Our exhaust cat back will start about there, and then rest of our exhaust. That's enough about that. Let's put this daggum thing on. Daggum. Ugh. It's also not very light. Oh, it's gonna fit. Oh boy. Then, what's fun is these nuts right here, oblong, semi-locking, just like the other ones. I did not purchase them for this build. I had them, and there's another one. That was real cool. Oh, let's just take a minute and man, this is cool. This is so cool. Now that I've taken a minute to appreciate how cool this is, my next thought is, I'm pretty confident I'm gonna have to buy new oxygen sensors, which is gonna cost a fortune. The ones that were in the car, I think were original or at least pretty mild up. And so we wanna make sure we're reading good information, because last thing we want is think we got good air fuel and then we go lean, kablooski. Here is just kind of how it's gonna look. The couple important things to remember, our engine is actually gonna sit more like this than where it was. So that'll free up a little bit of space. It's a little, and by a little I mean extremely, tight around the brake booster. We're pretty close to the shifter cables. I did get some heat sleeve for the shifter cables that'll wrap around. I'll probably do that same thing on this brake line. And we have a turbo blanket for this, so that'll help too. We just wanna make sure we're doing a good job protecting as much of this stuff back here as we can. So, and the thing I'm thankful for is we have plenty of room to put that wastegate actuator on. I was a little worried about that. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna find something to cap this off, and then we're gonna cap off these because these are also holes that things can fall into. I found a problem. A stud problem, if you will. I got one stud that really looks like it's hitting the turbo. What I know is I won't be able to get the nut on. We might have to trim that down just a little. Injector time. So we have our new fuel injectors because we're putting on our big old turb ski. We need more fuel, which comes in line with our fuel injectors. We also have a different fuel rail. This actually has a Dash 8 fitting on it, which gives me the opportunity to just put this block off on there because I think it looks cool. Return feed. So this is gonna come from probably our secondary fuel pump, which we'll talk about many, many times from now. Important to note though, our injectors are considerably different, so we actually need to have our fuel rail higher up than it is with the factory injectors, which is what this guy is. Look how crusty this is, by the way. I don't think this is the injector that came out of this car. So here's the conundrum I'm in. This is our hardware for our fuel rail, right? We have our standoff so that it brings the rail up. Do we run the stock or the included hardware, generic washer, generic bolt? Do we do the fuel rail kit, which this would be for factory rail, or do we use black ones? I won't be able to make this decision really until we get it on the car and kind of evaluate what's going on. Here's where our injectors are gonna go, and this is pretty straightforward as far as the injector install goes. They're just gonna plop along in like that. So for our injector install, this is pretty straightforward. I like to use a little dielectric grease. We're gonna put our injectors in the head. I am paying attention to kind of the orientation of the rail because we gotta be able to plug these babies in. Every time I put a part on, I think, gosh, I hope this is the last time I have to do this. I'm gonna lube the tops of the seals too, just so that our rail slides on a little bit easier. As long as you don't get it in the injector hole, this dielectric is actually really nice for these. Now, you have injectors that are coming out at like slightly different angles. You really need to be careful here. Heard one clip. I think we're in. Oh, there we go. So it kind of went rolled like towards the back of the car just a little bit. Let's go. Every piece of this is so exciting. I love it. Now we got to figure out how beautimous we want to make these things. The real question is, will you even see any of this? Okay, so you will see the N2 kind of. So I have that kit specifically for fuel rail for this car, but I also have a whole bunch of delicious variants. So we gotta follow our heart. Because the manifold is black, I kind of think it's these, the purple ones. I don't mind these, but I just think the wider one looks way better. All right, well, I'm gonna use the bolt that they supplied with the rail. It's gonna look like this. Now, I do have a lower profile version of these, which the only reason I'm tempted to use that, like it's such a subtle difference, is this is a normal height bolt. This is a low profile one. If I have something up top, getting a different length normal bolt is gonna be easier. I think we do the low profiles. It'll look basically the same. It's like the nerdiest thing on the planet. Which bolts are the right bolts that you're never gonna see, yet you put the grubbiest heat shield on the planet on there? Basically, my rule has been, if it's touching purple, it needs a black washer. If it's touching black or silver or something, it gets a purple washer. I'm also going to install the fuel pressure regulator. Now, we're not done with the fuel injectors yet. We still have the electrical connectors. These are different from the factory ones, so when we get to the place of dealing with wiring, I'm gonna have to splice these all in, but that's a problem for another day. But what we can do is take a step back and look at how amazing this fuel rail setup actually looks and get excited because this whole thing is really starting to come together to look like a proper engine, and that is awesome. This is gonna be a huge moment because we are about to embark on a journey of valve cover. Now, you're looking at this and the whole engine really at this point and thinking, Charles, that's a lot of purple. Valid, but remember, you'll only see this. Don't look at me. Many moons ago, when I took all this apart, I took this oil separator. You know what this looks like? Like an SOS pad that's tacked together. But I wanted to clean all the like carbon buildup out of it. So really, this just chills in there. Then we have this that keeps it in place. And then we gotta put our little tiny bolts on, and I'm 100% gonna Loctite these. One of these comes out, and you're in for probably a rebuild of an engine. I have no idea what the torque spec of these are. There's probably not even an official Volkswagen torque spec. We can't afford to go so hard on these bolts. This feels like the kind of bolt that the threads are cut by running the bolt in, so it's just a little weird. Well, the real question is, can I get it out? I have another valve cover that I think I can rob one out of there, but, well, I can't yell at anything. This one's on me. I was just thinking like, boy, these are delicate little bolties. And she just said snap. Didn't even feel like it was that tight. Apparently it was. So sometimes when this happens, you can just twist the bolt out without a whole bunch of hubbub. That is a real dinky bolt is the only problem. Yeah, super excited about this. Oh, so fun. There it went. Okay, well, my extractor broke and it's likely hardened steel. It's not even scratching it. I guess the good thing is it's probably not coming out. I guess we just leave it in there. I really hate that idea. If this were in a different place, we could weld a nut on it and like build up the weld and probably get it out. The problem is if we do that, we're gonna destroy the powder coat, which I guess is better than destroying an engine. I think it's just gonna have to be that way. So here's what I gotta know. If you were me and this happened to you, what would you do? Leave it? Send it? Take it to the machine shop? I don't know. I gotta think about it.